What is up, everybody? This is Eric, the one and only Bay Area collector, and today we are continuing the series of how I got my video game consoles. This is part 5, and we're going to be talking about the 7th generation consoles. Now, just to give you a little brief recap of the 7th generation consoles, this is a set of consoles that came out between 2005, 2009, 2006, around the mid 2000s. Now, around that time, I would basically put it, in my opinion, for me, it was like the dark times of video game consoles, because by that time, there was only one console that I really cared about out of the main ones that came out at the time. And but let me begin. I'll explain more as I go into each console in detail. Let me begin with the first one that I really, at the time when this console came out, I really did not want to have anything to do with it. Although, yeah, I changed my mind over the years. My mind has changed, and that console, you guys, is, and I apologize for the lighting, is the Xbox 360 console. Now, this console came out back in November 22nd of 2005, and it was a console that I actually did not own at the time that at the time of this generation. I never owned the Xbox 360, nor did I really give a hoot about it. I never cared about this console, unfortunately, and it wasn't until just recently, about a year, not even 2 years ago, that I picked this console up after purchasing the Xbox One, and I realized that, boy, I'm gonna be honest with you, I missed out on this console. And of course, my views have changed, since then. And I am really happy to say that I own the console now. And the first game that I ever owned for this console is Saints Row the Third. But I've never played that game yet, although I hear it's a pretty cool game. But yes, this console, I completely overlooked this console. And during the time that this console came out, around that era, I just didn't care for it. Just didn't care much for that console. Never crossed my mind at the time that I'll even ever own this console. So it was, yeah, I know my views have changed a lot, but it was what it was at the time. Fortunately, I own it now, and I am very happy to own it. Played I haven't really played that many games on it yet. Very first game that I officially played on the Xbox 360 was Terminator 3, and boy, did I love that game. So far, every single game I've played thus far for the Xbox 360 has been a really fun game. So have nothing bad to say about it now. The next console that came out at the time was the infamous, in my opinion, Wii. Nintendo Wii. Yes, infamous. I will say infamous. And I'll explain why in a minute. This particular console, this little tiny console, I gotta say I like the compact. I love the way this console is very compact. We own 3 Wii consoles. I bought this one fairly recently and modded it. My son owns his own Wii, and my girlfriend has her own Wii that she had prior from when we met. She brought along in the, I guess you can say, into the family. And of course, this little console came out back in November 19th of 2006. Both this console and the next one I'm going to talk about came out almost around the same time. But this particular console, I purchased it. One of the reasons why I wanted to buy this console was because at the time they were releasing Ghostbusters, the video game. One of my favorite games of all time. And this one in particular, I guess they said, although it played a little different than the ones in the other consoles, you would use the Wii control like a proton pack. So by holding the control, it'll do the trick. So I thought that was like a nifty idea. But overall, when I bought this console, I remember buying it in San Diego at the local Costco. I remember getting it as a bundle because it came with Wii Sports and Wii Play plus Smash Brothers for the GameCube. It came all bundled up at the time. That original Wii, of course, when I got divorced, it stayed with my ex, unfortunately. And that was supposed, that you could see how much I really cared about this console, because to me, this console was a gimmick. I'm sorry for those who like the Wii. This is probably one of my least favorite consoles. Not anything again, gotta say it, out of the Nintendo set of consoles, this one is one of my least favorite consoles. What I did like about this one was the fact that I could play, the Wii channel came out, and then you can buy retro games and you can play it, and they released so many good old school games from Nintendo, Genesis, Super Nintendo. They released it into the system, into the virtual console, and that actually was the advantage. But the main thing that I didn't like about this console was the controls. Don't like those motion controls, and to this day, I own a lot of Wii games, but to me, it was just a gimmick. It just didn't cut out. By the way, I do have that Ghostbuster game, but I never really tried it. I gotta say, there are some couple of good games in this console. Can't deny it. There's some great games on it. However, I feel like the Wii had a lot of shovelware games, because to this day, this is probably one of the cheapest consoles, even right now, to purchase video games. They're super cheap. You can find more expensive ones, but in all, the games are cheap for this console. So I think it's a good time if you guys want to collect for this one, which is what I'm doing. But to be honest, I never really care for it. But I'm giving it another shot. I bought it, because I got it really cheap. I modded it. I was able to mod mine. My son wanted me to mod his, but I've been too lazy for it. But I'm gonna give it another shot. Unfortunately, another console I didn't care much for during that time, which explains a lot if I left the console with my ex-wife, because I really, technically speaking, I just didn't care for it when I moved out. And yeah, to this day, it's a console that I'm not really fond of. But anyways, moving right along to the bread and butter of this particular video, the one that this is the one where I have more of a little bit of story on, and that is the legendary PS3. Legendary indeed. PS3, my favorite video game console of this era, one of my favorite video game consoles of all time, the legendary, ginormous for being the slim PS3. Now, the first time, during that era of consoles, like I mentioned, I actually didn't care for this era at the time. I was really happy with the PS2. But like I mentioned earlier about the Wii, there was one game that I wanted so bad to play. And to this day, I've reviewed it and you guys know it. And it's the first game I ever owned for this console. And that was Ghostbusters, the video game. I love that game. It's one of my all-time favorite games. Console that I wanted to own just to play that game was worth it for me at the time. But here's where the story gets interesting. So at the time, before I begin the story, this console came out 2 days before the Wii came out, November 17, 2006 in the US. But this is the one that I really cared about. Had many fond memories, but the story of this console was that I originally wanted a PS3 Fat, the original PS3. At that time, my ex-brother-in-law had bought his, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. So um, man, I can't remember if I got this one for Christmas or how it went, that either I saved money for it at the time or whatnot, but I went to a GameStop and I bought a refurbished PS3 Fat, the original, that played the PS2 games, because that's why I wanted it, and I thought that was awesome too. Didn't work. I ended up returning it, and I ended up going to another GameStop or getting another one. Didn't work as well. And then so I went searching for it. I could not find a fat PS3. So eventually I got the Slim. And if you guys know, the PS3 Fat, the original PS3 plays PS1 and PS2 games plus PS3 games, and I thought that was super awesome at the time, and I still do think, but this one plays, it's funny how this one plays PS1 games, but it doesn't play PS2 games, unless you mod it, and I modded my console, so just recently, and boy, I think that the PS3, if you guys are able to mod your PS3 consoles, this one is not that hard anymore. It's a magnificent console to own. One of the consoles that I would highly recommend owning, if you can get it cheap. I got two of these. I got the original one that I owned when I was in San Diego, and I got this one, the one that I'm showing you guys right now. I gave this one to my son. This one, I bought it at the flea market a couple of years ago for like $20. This kid was selling it, and when he said $20 for it, I'm like, no way. Jumped in and I bought it, and everybody told me, why, you got another one? I said, no. And fortunately, both of these consoles, this one is a model that I'm able to mod if I wanted to as well. So I got lucky with that too. Now, I gotta say, this is one of the best consoles, just up there with the PS2. Love this console. Many great games I've played on it. From God of War to what other games have I played on this one that I can't think right now. But so many great PS3 exclusive titles, as well as other games. Now, the only one thing I got about these generation consoles is that by this generation, I mean, this was happening even during the Nintendo era and the Sega Master System era, that there were games the same games were released for the same console. Like, say, for example, what can I use as a perfect example? I can't think right now. It's too late right now at night. But anyways, games come out for each particular console, but each game may be slightly different, can run better. By this time, this is why the reason I didn't really get an Xbox 360 was a lot of the games were coming out were the same as the ones for the PS3, and even to this day is one of the things that I find common. I mean, it's supposed to happen, but it makes it harder to choose because there's also some exclusives. So that's why that's what they reel you in. But by this time, during that time, this console came out, and these other consoles, that was my thing that I was like, meh. So, but all in all, to me, this was a dark era of video game consoles at the time. Did not care for the other ones except the PS3. Regret about the 360, and I think my mind would have been a little different, but I think that this was the dark era of video gaming at this time, and it wasn't until the next generation of consoles that I'll talk about in the next video coming up in the future, in the near future, is that I say that it's a renaissance of video gaming. But anyways, that's a story for another day. This is this story for these consoles. This has been Eric the Bear Collector. Hope you guys enjoy the video. See you in the next one. Peace out.